Hi, this is Dave with Rubbernecker, and I'm going to show you a little watercoloring today on a couple of new stamps that we've got. We've got three ready right now and a few more to follow. And I'm going to show you these two today. And we're going to be using Color Burst. These are the powders, these are the liquids. If you've done watercolor before, I highly recommend the powders. But if watercolor is new to you or you're unsure with it, the liquids are simply foolproof because they're already controlled. They're already cut down a little bit, and adding a little bit of water to them means that you can get very, very light tones, and they mix really well, and you don't end up with little granules of color or too much color, which is the main problem learning to use Color Burst because it's this pure, intense pigment. So let's get started. Okay, we're going to start with this first flower. We're going to work with a Misti, which is something we've never done before with these stamps. So we're going to remove the padding here that works with the clear stamps because we're just going to work with rubber on these, rubber with cling. So let me get my magnets in here, hold that down. This is a piece of 140-pound watercolor paper. It's inexpensive Canson paper, and it does the job. So this is our insert. We've cut off our packaging, and so I'm going to bring this in here. I'm going to lay this on top of it, and I'm going to position it about like that because we're going to trim this watercolor paper down later. So I'm going to pull it off and just ballpark. That's just fine. Right there. Okay. So I'm going to move this over just a bit here so you can see both pieces and just down a little bit. And I'm going to be working right up here because I'm out of blue. No, I've got some blue in my tray here, but I don't want to work with it in the traditional way where we put in a relatively dry brush. I want to work with it in more of a watercolory way. So we're going to do this right here. And I'm going to pick up a little bit of the cerulean blue and I'm going to mix it in there. And so it's really, really watery, okay? And that's going to make it a really nice light shade. And I'm going to pretty much cover this whole stamp with that. And what I'm hoping to do is cause it to come together in color. I don't want a uniform color is what I'm trying to say. I want it to be a little blotchy and very thin. And I'm going to give it a couple sprays. And we're just going to let it work. And now the suction, when I pull this up, is going to cause the inks to kind of come together like that. And I'm just going to let that dry for a couple minutes. Now I'm going to just blot this off roughly, but I'm not going to try and remove everything. And I'm going to come back in with just a little bit more of the cerulean, just to darken it a bit. And I'm just going to spread it in the middle, staying away from the outside edges because I want that lightness to be there. And let's see what we get now. Okay, a little bit more color there. And now I'm going to force a little bit more on this third one. And I'm not going to even remove this. I'm just going to work with it. And I'm just going to dot in a little bit of the darkest blue right in the middle of each of the flowers. And knowing that it's going to spread when I stamp it, even though it'll want to kind of soak in. There. Let me switch to this other view of this and pull this up here and bring this in for you. So you can see what we've got going on here. As the colors start to work into the watercolor paper or work around it, you can see we get the layers of color. I didn't quite make that as light as I might like it, but on the next pass I would take a little bit less off. And we could even come back in with a little bit more and tap in a little bit more darkness right in the middle of the rubber. And do it again. It doesn't, there's no magic number about 3. If we wanted just a little bit more color in there, we can do it. You can also, very gently, with really not much water, you can pick up a little bit of the cerulean and you can touch it right in if you want. There's still moisture in there, and as long as it's wet and you're not using a lot of water, you can actually add color to the watercolor paper, which is something that's very unusual. You can't do it with cardstock, and you can't do it with the felt paper that we sell. It just isn't made for that. But if this was a blended, we'll get into that. Some of the next ones we're going to be using the gamboge and the scarlet from the Moroccan set. And because of the contrasting colors rather than monochromatic like this, you can get even more interesting results by just touching in color. Gentle is better than bull in a china closet. Go easy with your watercolor, and you can do amazing things. So let me clean this off a little bit. We're going to switch back to the wide angle here and pull that stamp off. Now, what I've done here is I've taken and marked on the back of my stamp 6 positions for those 6 flower buds. And so I'm going to take a look at this and say, okay, right about down there is where I want that one to go. And that one I want to go right there. And I'm going to position those visually, just doing what I'm doing here. I've also got a space in between where the 2 sticks come through. And I want that flower to span that. Actually, I'm going to take it back a little bit further. Just going to modify the stamp with a pair of the Tim Holtz scissors. Take that out, because there's a space in between there and there that goes right across that flower bud. And so if I position this right, I'll be able to see the flower bud in between, and that's what I'm after. Okay, so now I'm going to take the lamp black from the set, and I'm going to use just a little bit right here on my craft sheet. And my brush got to be right there. And I'm going to pick this up with enough water on it. So it's going to basically be, it looks like it's black on the screen, but it's really a charcoal, and it's not very dark at all because it's very watery. And I'm going to brush this on, and then we'll stamp it and see if I get the contrast that I'm looking for. Because I'm going to put one coat on with this, and then I'm going to highlight it with a much stronger black. So I get a kind of a gray base to this, and I didn't get quite enough. And that's always the case. You always want to make a little bit more than what you think you're going to want. Okay, a couple little crystals came out. Try and catch all of this with it. And now I'm going to put in a little bit more. No, I've got to stamp it first. Okay, so here we go with this. Okay, that came out really nice. Okay, so I don't want quite as much water on this, so I'm going to take this off now. And I'm going to put a little bit more into this so it gets much richer. And I'm going to predominantly do the little spots in the buds, but I'm also going to go down along this solid stalk right here and add a little darkness to it just randomly. And remember, if you didn't get someplace that you wanted to get more, you can do it again. Okay, that came out great. it's watercolor, and you have to play with it, and you don't always get what you want the first time. But, you know, I got a little bit of disconnection in here, and it makes it look very watercolory. It's not like I've stamped it, but it's more like I tried to paint this with a brush, which I can't do. And I'm pretty happy with the way it aligned. This is a new stamp for me, so it is I'm not used to it yet, but that's a pretty good looking stamp. I did one earlier, and I've got a couple cards here. There's the result for that one. And it made a real pretty little with sympathy card. I'm sure there are lots of more uses for that, but a nice start. Okay, so we're going to move on to the second one now. And we're only going to have time for two, but it'll be fine. I'll make some more off camera and put them up on YouTube for you. But we're going to position this guy, and I think it goes about like that. So we're going to position him in there about like that. And I'm just going to slip this out, see if it's about centered. Nice thing about the watercolor paper is that it's usually larger than what you're going to work with. And so center it in the middle and just trim it. And so on here, we're going to work with some of the yellow in the set. Actually, no, we don't have yellow in this set. We're not going to work with yellow. And so I'm going to work with the gamboge, if I can get away with this blue water. Okay. And I'm just going to put this on randomly, and I'm not going to put it on everywhere. And that's what I want to do. And so now I'm going to put some more on. And I'm paying attention to areas that I didn't particularly get last time. And I'm working with the powdered watercolor today because I'm used to it. But if you're doing this in the beginning, the liquid watercolor that I showed you in the beginning is much easier to work with. And all you need to do to lighten it up a little bit to get gradation of tone is to add a little water to it. So as you make it, as you mix it, a little bit of water, a little bit more water makes it lighter. And it's very easy to use that way. So let's see what we got going here. Okay, so we filled in some of the leaves. I got a few more. I'm going to leave that. It's the color change that I think is really interesting. And so now I'm going to come back in with a little bit more of the gamboge. And I've got some scarlet here from previously on my palette. And I'm going to pick up a little bit of that and shade it a little bit with that. And I'm just kind of tint these flowers here and there with, actually they're leaves, aren't they? With a little bit more color, a little bit of fall thing. If you're back east, maybe there's some leaves still, probably not. In California, the leaves just turn brown. But for those of you that are watching and are in the Midwest states, Rubbernecker will soon be based in Tennessee. Both my son and I have bought homes in Tennessee, just south of Nashville, and we're very excited, and we'll be moving across there in the month of December. It will mean that we can get your packages to you even faster. And now I'm going to use some of the scarlet directly. Right into the water. And to help disperse it, I'm going to give it a quick press with the stamp. There we go. And once again, that looks like I really tried to watercolor this as opposed to stamping it. And anytime I can get that kind of a result where it makes it look like I actually have some painting talent, I'm thrilled. Because I know I don't, and you guys have seen me demo before, you know I don't either. So we'll just leave it at that. And the stem goes on, and once again, looking at my package piece, it goes on about like that, and that, and that. And what I'm doing is I'm looking at that little piece right there, that little piece, and that little piece, and I'm aiming for there and there and there. And that's what I'm trying to do. And we'll see if I had any luck at all with that. Okay, we're going to go back to our lamp black and use the same technique we did before. Just a couple crystals to make a gray base. And I got a little bit too much water, so I want a little bit more color into that. And this is working with the water. As you do this and you find that you're getting too much, it blurs out too much, then just back off on your water a little bit. I probably have enough water on there without even having to spray that for the first pass, remembering that we're going to stamp it again and again and again. That looks really great. And now we're going to add some more of the black to what we got going up here. And we'll use that to accent that. And we got a nice, good, solid black there. And so I'm going to go to the bottom side of this. Just kind of touch it in. Just randomly add a little bit here and there. And see what we get. It's already wet down below. It doesn't dry out that fast, so you can come in and add without having to spray. And let me move in on that one so you can see it. I'm going to shift it over this way and then bring my camera in a little closer. I'm going to switch to that. There we go. And that's a nice finished piece right there. Okay, so we did that one earlier. I made a couple of cards. I did that one, and we used brown on it that time. And it's, I'm not much of a card maker, so it is what it is. Maybe back out a little bit. Yeah. That's why we have a design team. The women on our design team are outstanding, and I don't even attempt to try and say that I'm a card maker because I'm not. I like doing this. And here's another one that we have coming out that's new that we didn't have time for today, but we'll have available for you. And there's a few others that we'll have. So by the time this airs, we'll have the rubber back from the engraver, and we'll get some other things out to you. And I hope you've enjoyed this today. Come see us. Thanks.